Maybe the mid-round picks like Pat Bryant, Sai'Vion Jones, Q Robinson, maybe they won't have the biggest impact on where the Broncos go this year, but they could have some profound impact on what the Broncos do in the future. And perhaps they'll have some impact down the line this season in terms of what the Broncos do on the field. We'll get into that. Beyond the rookies named Jahdae Barron and R.J. Harvey as we dive into what to expect from the mid-round rookies in this year's class on this edition of Denver Football After Dark. Denver Football After Dark on this Sunday morning as we record this. Labor Day weekend, a quiet NFL weekend, a loud football weekend in general, if you're talking about college football. Certainly some very loud results on Saturday and Friday, and more games to come. But in the NFL kind of goes into hiding this weekend. The calm before the storm. You see Pat Bryant there. Pat Bryant had a really good summer. So did Sai'Vion Jones. So did Q Robinson. Really good summer, really good preseason for all three. Which is why I asked George Payton about them when George had his conference call with local media on Thursday morning. Just to kind of get a status report of what he thought about how those guys came along over the summer. So that's a jumping off point for this edition of Denver Football After Dark here over Labor Day weekend. How you doing? Mace here. Into the night, although you may be watching this on a Sunday morning. Maybe it's daylight out when you're watching this. So whether you're watching live or on delay, hello. Good to see you as always. The rookie class. Now, there was a report out there today, or on Saturday, I should say, about at least one rookie number, potentially Jahdae Barron, going from number 12 to number 23, which I think is leading to some speculation about what jersey number R.J. Harvey might have. So we'll find out probably when they get on the field Monday. A lot of times these rookie jersey numbers get settled either on that Monday or that Wednesday leading into week one. So that's a little thing. A little aesthetic thing that we'll be watching out for. But beyond Barron and Harvey, and beyond Jeremy Crawshaw, the punter, of course, because that's a rookie. He's a rookie who's going to play a role. But you get to Bryant, who's the number 4 receiver, pretty clearly. And you get to Q Robinson, who, he's edge rusher 4, edge rusher 5. And Sai'Vion Jones, who's in the mix at defensive line, but you've got 7 apparently quality guys, and you may only have 5 spots some game days that are active, 6 spots other game days. So this is what I mean when I say we're talking about 3 guys here in Bryant, Robinson, and Jones who've had excellent runs of form so far this summer. And I think are going to play huge roles long term. And I think maybe with Sai'Vion Jones in particular, you're talking about somebody who will potentially influence contract decisions on the defensive line. The progress of Sai'Vion Jones may well be an influence in whether the Broncos re-sign John Franklin Myers or not, whether they bring him back. And frankly, from the moment the Broncos drafted Sai'Vion Jones, I think you could probably see the potential writing on the wall that if Sai'Vion developed with the skill set and the frame that he has, he certainly possesses the tools to be a quality interior pass rusher. And if he can harness them and grow with them and develop, certainly by 2026, you could be talking about somebody who can get those reps that JFM is receiving now and deliver quality and deliver what you hope is the same level of production. So we'll start there. Even though Sai'Vion Jones was the third rookie that George Paton mentioned when he answered my question asking about these 3 mid-round rookies, and thus it was the shortest response, as is often the case when you ask kind of the 3-part question, and the third part often gets the shortest, a little bit the short shrift there. We'll actually start with George Paton's comment about Sai'Vion Jones when I asked him about the 3 mid-round rookies on Thursday. Here's George Paton.
Then, Sai'Vion, man, he does the dirty work inside. He's developing a pass rush arsenal. He's right on track to play this year. So we're really excited about all those 3 players.
Right on track to play this year. Now, I mean, that's sort of an interesting comment there because, I mean, if he plays this year, you say, okay, who is he taking time from? And for him to play this year, he's like I say, he's got to nudge somebody out, or is that just kind of a natural weeding out process because you expect somebody to get injured at some point? I mean, you're not going to go through the season with the defensive line staying fully healthy. There's going to be an injury there. That's why one of the more fascinating things to look at as we head into week 1 is which defensive linemen are active. Who gets the jerseys, who does not. I mean, we know that Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, Malcolm Roach, DJ Jones, we know they're getting jerseys. We know they're going to play. It's a question of the 3 guys beyond, Sai'Vion Jones, Jordan Jackson, and Iwazurike. Who's getting the jerseys beyond them? Last year, D lineman 5 was Jordan Jackson. D lineman 6 was Iwazurike. Thus, we didn't see much of Iwazurike unless the Broncos went with all 16 linemen active, which was something rare. If you were facing a team that you expected to see more running, you'd sometimes see Iwazurike up, or when Zach Allen was injured, you'd see Iwazurike up taking his place. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. Is it status quo from last year, or did Iwazurike bump Jackson, or did Sai'Vion Jones bump both of those veterans? That's the thing that we don't really know right now. Based on the rotations that we saw in preseason, that's not something that we quite know. I mean, George Paton does say, there'll be, a role for Sai'Vion Jones this year, but didn't say when. So it's one of those things where despite a very strong summer, maybe there's not snaps for Sai'Vion Jones just yet. But it doesn't mean that he didn't have a good camp. Doesn't mean that he didn't come on strong. So Q Robinson in sort of a similar situation as well. Once he got past that slight injury that he had early in training camp, picked up where he left off, where in OTAs and minicamp was making some disruptive plays off the edge. Took a little while to find his footing once he started working with pads on, and then you started to see the consistent disruptiveness that he showed in the spring and summer, and then really seemed to peak by the Saints preseason game. a good sign considering that with Q Robinson, you were talking about a guy who had a limited amount of defensive snaps at Alabama because he was a reserve for most of his time there. And then when he finally broke in the starting lineup, had the elbow injury that limited him to basically half a season. So when you were drafting him, you were drafting a player where most of his snaps were on special teams, and that's where he may contribute immediately. The question then becomes, if he's contributing immediately there, do you have 5 edges active? Does he nudge out Dondrea Tillman despite Tillman's impressive rookie season last year? Or do you have 5 edges active because you want Q Robinson to have a role on special teams? And certainly Tillman had good work in the offseason, and he had a good camp as well. And Jonah Ellis had a tremendous camp. Jonah Ellis is pretty clearly edge 3 in that room, and certainly has done, and certainly he's continuing to progress and has taken the leap to the point where you can have a nice liberal rotation of edges and give Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper some breathers because of how far Jonah Ellis has come. So anyway, Q Robinson and his progress in his rookie training camp and preseason. Here's George Payton talking about that.
Q, he was raw when we got him. He's still raw, but you see the flashes, you see the talent. Especially that last game, against New Orleans. But he's had flashes every game. He's had flashes in the practice. Just a really talented kid who wants to be great, and I think he'll help us this year. So, but raw. See, that's the thing you come back to. You're playing the raw game, the long game with Q Robinson. And this is, we're having the contractual conversation. Does that really impact anything with Nick Bonito? Probably not. I think the only impact for a backup edge with Nick Bonito and the contract, if the Bonito price point goes past a certain level, we talked a little bit about Nick Bonito's contract on other shows on this channel. You could argue that maybe $35 million per year is a bridge too far, and this is where maybe if you're the Broncos, perhaps at this point, if you want to offer him a deal, maybe you think about a deal that's heavier on guarantees than average per year. In other words, maybe you give him a deal that's $90 million guaranteed, so a nice hefty guarantee that puts him at a pretty high level in terms of guarantees. Actually, we can actually, tell you just how high that would be. In terms of guarantees, a $90 million guarantee would take him 6th in terms of guarantee, right behind Max Crosby. But if you did a $90 million guarantee and then $120 million over 4 years, you would be 6th in guarantee, and then you'd be 6th in APY, but you'd be only a little bit behind Max Crosby in guarantee, but you'd be a pretty significant amount down in terms of APY behind, and about $5.5 million per year behind. And that may be more reasonable in terms of his value. The question is, would Nick Bonito and his camp take that at this point? Anyway, you have these edges in the stable, though. If Nick Bonito's camp says, no, we want to play this out, there's no indication of that being the case. All indications are the negotiations are going smoothly. But if there's a wrench there because Micah Parsons' contract drove up the market a little bit by taking the top contract up $6 million a year in APY, is that something you revisit and say, well, we've got Jonah Ellis here, we've got Dondrea Tillman, and we have this guy who's raw, but making some progress in Q Robinson. So that's mid-round rookie number 2. Mid-round rookie number 3, of course, is Pat Bryant, somebody that we've all talked about a lot. You tend to talk about rookie receivers and running backs more. You tend to talk about skill position players a little bit more in training camp. What they do tends to naturally jump out more in those types of workouts. But that wasn't the only reason why Pat Bryant impressed. The route running impressed, the tenacity impressed, the blocking impressed, and then, of course, it wasn't just in practice. He went out there in the preseason game against Arizona and doubled down on it. And for all the work he did as a pass catcher, to me, the most impressive moment was when he was downfield blocking for Evan Engram. And the thing that he seemed to want to talk about the most after the game and that he was proudest of was the block that he made on Evan Engram. That was the thing that when I brought it up, his face lit up. Like, you could tell just how excited he was about that play. So, George Payton on Pat Bryant and his progress so far.
You look at Pat Bryant and how mature he is, not only as a route runner, but just, in the meeting rooms on the practice field, but routes, hands, size, strength, big playability, 50-50 balls, and then you see him blocking. And so, he's ahead of schedule. It's never been, one thing about Pat, it hasn't been too big for him, since he walked in the door.
Ahead of schedule. So you have George Payton talking about the other two mid-round rookies contributing this year, but then with Pat Bryant saying ahead of schedule. And on some level, that subconsciously had to be in their thoughts when an offer came from New Orleans for Devon Vele that was too good to refuse. That you had Pat Bryant being ahead of where you thought he was going to be. There's no question that was something that was on their minds. No question that played into their thinking. And now Pat Bryant is your wide receiver 4, and knock on whatever surface, hopefully there are no injuries there, but if there are, all of a sudden he becomes one of your most important players in the passing game. And you find out a lot more about him. Anyway, Bobby, you've been waiting for this show. Well, I'm glad you waited. Here you are. Sorry there wasn't a show on Friday. I just got back from the Rockies game that night and just like, okay, I need to get some sleep. I had an early engagement on Saturday morning to take care of, so that required my attention. So that was a reason why I didn't have a late night show in me on Friday. But good to be here. Probably will not be a late night show on Sunday as well, because if this is like a normal Labor Day weekend, we will probably have a Sean Payton conference call on Monday morning. So I expect the next After Dark will probably be Monday night after a Broncos Monday. Labor Day is a work day for the Broncos. They have a practice. We will probably hear from Sean Payton on Monday morning. And the Monday morning Labor Day conference call is usually Sean Payton very short. He doesn't really like that, but he does it anyway. It's sort of an obligation. And we usually hear from a couple of players. And it's what they call the bonus practice. But they're back at work, and we'll be covering that. So I expect to have an After Dark on Monday night. Probably, if you're thinking time-wise, I don't know how many of y'all are going to be watching the North Carolina TCU game, Bill Belichick's debut. I'll be watching that with great interest, as you can imagine. Just look at the pennant back there. So probably sometime a little bit after that is when I'll be doing this show. And I may have thoughts about that game too. So anyway, so that's your programming note for next couple of days here as we get into this. The only spot to be on YouTube. Yep, probably the only spot to be on YouTube at 1:34 Mountain Time on Sunday morning. Appreciate you. Appreciate the Tri-State listening in. Is this live? Yep, this is live. 1:35 Mountain Time on Sunday morning. Yep. I'm feeling better than I was a couple hours ago. I had a little bit of a stomach thing a couple of hours ago. Wasn't feeling too hot. So haven't looked forward this much forward to a show since Orange and Blue Today came out, which was on Friday. So, yes, it's a long time there, Bobby. Oh boy, the journey to the top of the mountain begins. Yeah, my friend Mark Kisla over at the Denver Gazette. I have to consult his column here because he was tempering the expectations in his piece. It doesn't surprise me that he would do that. Of course, Kiz did pick them to go to the playoffs last year. Kiz predicted them to be better last year than I did. I had them at 7-10. He had them better than that last year. This year, he says they'll be hard pressed to match the 10-7 of a year ago, and this year I have them going 11-6. So hopefully for the Broncos, I'm right and he's wrong. But that's Kiz for you. He's a contrarian. Anyway, so pumped from the first game. TNF can't get here fast enough. Thursday night football and then Friday football, of course, because it's the Thursday game and then the Friday game in Sao Paulo on YouTube. So we get a division game on Friday. So yeah, that's a game we're going to be watching with great interest, of course. We get the Chiefs and the Chargers, the first glimpse of the Chargers without Rashawn Slater. So get to see their reconstituted offensive line as they adapt to life without their all-pro tackle. So I'd say I probably am looking forward to that game a little more than Thursday Night Football. Appreciate you, Brian. Appreciate everyone watching this game. Yes, we are 1 week away. Yep. At this time, a week from now, we'll all be snuggled in our beds. Visions of week 1 completions and carries and sacks and whatnot dancing in our heads. It's close. It's almost here. I mean, the wait kind of ended with training camp. For me, the season starts with training camp. And actually, the time of year that I work the most, believe it or not, is training camp. That's the hardest part of the year for me. But now it is kind of, it's real. It's real. It'll be interesting to see how loose Sean is with Bo week 1. We know last season he didn't really throw the ball past 10 yards at all. We'll see how aggressive Bo and Sean will be. Yeah, and you know what? There was an interesting soundbite, I thought, from Sean Payton on Friday when he was talking about just how much they were going to do offensively early in the season with Bo Nix. How much they were going, kind of not so much using the phrase of how much of the menu that they were going to use, but just sort of talking about keeping things within the realm of what they did best and what these players could do best early in the season. Not just Bo Nix, but even the receivers as well. Just focusing on what this offense can do well. The core competencies, so to speak. Here's Sean Payton talking about that on Thursday.
Early in the season, be careful. There's not too much. Let's get to the things that we as a group offensively do well, the things that he really feels comfortable with, and there'll be, a few twists based. Each team has a different defensive structure, but I think the mistake would be this large jump in volume, and again, it's never about the amount. It's the details within each play. And so the details for Sutton, Bryant, Frank, it's the details with everyone. And so he can move as that group can move. And so we always talk about painting the picture for the Q. And we might love a play, and yet are we there yet at tight end or receiver? And we just got to make sure that we're moving. We're still a young offense. We're experienced in the offensive line, but I think that's something that's important, especially early in the year.
That's the answer that I think says don't expect the whole breadth of the offense right away. Expect it to be a bit limited to what these guys know best and can do best early. So this is not going to be 100% of what they can do eventually. This is not going to be 100% of the Sean Payton offense early. Now, you hope it's more than last year. Certainly, this is going to be more than it was early last year. Like the first couple of weeks, that was a limited menu. It'll be more than that, but I mean, he talks about the tight end. Okay, you have Evan Engram, who's not a young player, but it's his first year in the scheme. He talks about, you're incorporating Pat Bryant. He's a rookie. What does he do best? I mean, you have to mention Troy Franklin. Even though he was in the scheme last year, he didn't play all that much. So think about the fact that you're going to have some plays out there where you're going to look in the huddle and you're going to look at the skill players and you're going to see R.J. Harvey, rookie. You may see Pat Bryant, rookie. Troy Franklin, second-year player. Didn't get many snaps last year. Evan Engram, first year in the scheme. So there may be some plays. I'll bet. I would say there'll be at least one snap in the game where you've got that combination of four players in there: Harvey, Franklin, Bryant, Engram, and then plenty of others where you've got one or two in there. And I mean, you want to have them out there because they're part of what you're trying to do. And especially with, with Pat Bryant, you want to bring him along. You want him to grow. R.J. Harvey, you want to bring him along. You want him to grow. I'd say J.K. Dobbins probably gets more touches than R.J. Harvey in this game. I think if I'm projecting it based on touches, I'd say J.K. Dobbins 14 to 16, R.J. Harvey 10 to 13, Jaleel McLaughlin or Tyler Bidet, whoever is RB3, say 3 to 6. But you want R.J. Harvey to be involved because you want him to grow. You want him to eventually be able to do more, to have more on his menu. And you're not going to have him grow and build towards more without having him on the field. But while he's growing, you want to set him up in situations that will allow him to succeed. Ditto Pat Bryant, ditto Evan Engram, ditto Troy Franklin. And that means not having everything on the menu. So the running game should relieve some stress on Bo as well. Well, I mean, that's the ideal thing. It's what you were hoping last year. I mean, I asked Sean Payton the question about the things you can do to help a rookie quarterback along, and that's where he gave the answer. The things that support a rookie quarterback are defense and a running game. They had one of the two. Now, hopefully, you can support him with the running game this year. Where the Broncos decided the glitch was in the running backs. Thus, R.J. Harvey, J.K. Dobbins, they're here. Jaleel McLaughlin returns, but returns in a role that's probably best suited to him, which is change of pace. And then Tyler Bidet is still back. I do expect you. I know Chris Thomason put this out there today, and I've kind of alluded to it as well. I think you'll probably see Blake Watson back at some point after the length of his injury settlement expires. I think you'll see him back on the practice squad. And so I don't think you've seen the last of Blake Watson around here in all likelihood. I think they want to keep turning the pages on him if they can, and keep seeing where his development goes. But here's the interesting thing. The Broncos thought the glitch was in the running backs. Brian Schottenheimer in Dallas believes the glitch was elsewhere because he sees Javonte Williams and thinks he can get more yards out of him down in Dallas. So we're going to find out who's right and who's wrong this year. Is Sean Payton right? Is Brian Schottenheimer right? Fixing to find out. Dobbins a beast when healthy, says Victory Lap. People underrating Dobbins, overrating Harvey. Dobbins I think Dobbins can carry an offense for a while. The one thing about Dobbins is we did see some diminishing returns last year the more he was out there. And so I kind of wonder if that's going to be the case as well, if he's out there and we see sort of the production maybe level off a little bit. If we see we see the same patterns we saw last year, highly productive early and then it kind of tails off a bit. That's something about which I'm curious to see if it has that same flow last year. But Crumble, you are right. They were better with JK out there and JK being productive than they were without him. So, Jeremy, what's my level of concern with the O-line adapting to wide zone? I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is something with which you have to play the long game. You're counting on this making the entire offense better by the back half of the season. If this works and you're able to get the proper cohesion and the proper execution of wide zone, then the back half of the season, you're doing it right and you're getting the defense to hesitate every snap, because the advantage of wide zone is run, pass, play action. It all looks the same off the snap as the defense reads it. It requires greater cohesion, greater working together, so it's harder to plug linemen into this, and it's harder to it's more difficult to get right. You can't microwave getting it right in wide zone. You can't. There's no plug and play for wide zone. But the long-term benefits are tremendous. But because you can't plug and play, a lot of teams don't have the patience to stick with it. Adam Troutman gave the indication a couple weeks ago that the Broncos are sticking with this, that this is something with which they're going to have the patience as they work these concepts into what they're doing. And what you're counting on is by the back half of the season, that if this is really clicking and really popping, that you're doing this with some proficiency, and then you're able to take advantage, and then you're really able to see some fireworks on offense. This may require more patience than I think a lot of people are going to have. That's the thing. It's the race to get better, but man, sometimes you just have to. It's hard. I know it is hard to sit back and wait for things to develop, especially when everything counts from the jump, because You can't win a Super Bowl in September, but you can lose it. Especially in the AFC, because realistically, I don't believe you're getting to the Super Bowl without winning the division, because I don't believe you're getting there winning 3 road games, which is why, yes, you could lose the Super Bowl in September if you started 0-4, because that might put you into a hole from which you can't get out to win the division. You could go 0-4 and make the playoffs, but 0-4 to win the AFC West is almost certainly a bridge too far. So that's why I say you can't win the Super Bowl in September. You can certainly lose it. And that's why the race to get better matters so much. Even though in September you're going to get, and I guess just brace yourself for this. Remember, when you look at the results around the league early in the season, everybody remember the Saints last year. In the first 2 weeks, they steamrolled people. They dominated. And what happened after that? They were terrible. There are going to be outlier results, false positives, early in the season. It's just part and parcel of what the NFL is right now, in an environment where you've cut the preseason to 3 games, and a lot of teams in the preseason don't play their starters much, if at all. And training camp over the years has transformed from one that had copious two-a-days to one where the number of practices that you can have in full pads is mandated. The time you're on the field is regulated. The preparation, the amount of preparation you can put in, it's not the same as it used to be. And as a result, you don't go to week 1 with everything as drilled as you did 20 years ago. And that's why you're going to see every year now some results in those first 2 weeks that when you get to the end of the season, you're going to look back and say, how on earth did that happen? That's just the way it is in the NFL nowadays. But the games count. They count just the same. They're important. The week 1 game counts just the same as the week 18 game. I mean, I really kind of feel bad for the Chiefs and Chargers having such a significant game, a divisional game, right from the jump. I mean, if it's up to me, if I were the NFL, I would not schedule any divisional games in the first 2 weeks. Period. I would stop scheduling divisional games in the first 2 weeks because of how you get wacky results now and how teams are still in their kind of formative stages in those first 2 weeks. So if I were commissioner, no divisional games in the first 2 weeks. Period. I'd tell the schedule makers with their computers, you program those things to make sure there are no divisional games until week 3. And they'd say, okay, we'll figure it out. There'd be a lot of things that would change if I were commissioner. There'd be a minor league for one thing, a true minor league. Yeah, we got all this money coming in. We're going to spend some money on that. Another way to develop players, because a guy like Caleb Lohner, that dude needs some snaps, and we'd get it to him. We'd get him some snaps. Like Sean Payton said, Caleb's like 2,000 some snaps behind everybody else. Well, here's a chance for him to start accumulating them. So, Fan base will be very overreactive this year. It's great when the teams look good. It looks good and insufferable when the team struggles. Yep. Yeah. That's the way it is. That's how it's going to be. Everyone's going to jump to conclusions. And it's hard, like, and I can say sometimes it's hard in my shoes because I think in general I try to kind of calm everybody down. And the thing you will hear me say probably over and over again is that it's never as good as it looks when it's great, and it's never as awful as it looks when it's bad. I shouldn't say never, because there are sometimes it is as awful as it looks when it's bad. When they lost 70-20, that was as awful as it looked. When they lost 51-14 to the Rams and you had Dalton Reisner shoving Brett Rippon on the sideline, that was as awful as it looked. Okay, rarely is it as awful as it looks. And rarely is it as good as it looks. How about that? That's just something to always bear in mind with this. So if the Broncos go out there against the Titans and they win 38-0 and everyone's feeling their oats, I might be on here Monday night after I've done my rewatch and telling you 10 things I didn't like. And y'all are going to be like, you're going to be Debbie Downering me. Heck, I might not be the only one. I'll bet you the coach might be in that kind of mood as well. It's just, it's just that's just how it is. There's always things that, like I say, it's rarely as good as it looks. There's always some things bubbling beneath the surface even when it's great. It's not that you don't appreciate it, not that you're not happy over a win, but sometimes you got an assist. Remember, this was a team that got in the playoffs last year because got a huge assist from Jonathan Taylor. It's another reason why I'm fascinated with that Week 2 game in Indianapolis, because the Colts are the Colts are looking at that game and they're saying, "Hey, we gave the playoffs to the Broncos on a silver platter." Yes, that is what they are saying. That is what they are thinking. And they get the Broncos in their stable. So believe that accordingly. I like that, Ignacio. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear. Yep. Loner getting actual playing time or Bo getting a Super Bowl? What comes first? Ooh. Good one. The only reason I'm going to say Loner getting playing time is I don't think the Broncos are a Super Bowl team this year. I think Super Bowl was probably another. Before I pick Super Bowl, I'm probably a year away from predicting that for this team. My Super Bowl prediction for this year is Baltimore Green Bay. So, first time I put it out there, Baltimore Green Bay is my pick. With Green Bay winning, I think the Packers pushed themselves over the top with this trade. They kind of did the chips all in thing, and I think it's going to work for them. It's the thing they had to do. That ever since they won Super Bowl 45, they've been to the playoffs 11 times since then, and they've never made a Super Bowl. They've had 5 byes in those 11 playoff appearances, and they've never made a Super Bowl. That's hard to do. So I get their perspective. I get why Brian Gutekunst made that trade. It's a move that's completely unlike him. It's a very unpacker-like move. But after a while, you just get frustrated of having the near misses and having the divisional round losses and saying, like, okay, why are we falling just short? What are we missing here? What's the final piece? let's try something. Let's try something different. Let's shake it up here. Let's stop being pretty good. Let's go for it. So anyway, all right. Appreciate you, Troy. Thanks for checking in, man. If I own the NFL, I'd give Bo Nix all Brady Super Bowls and ban Mahomes. Oh gosh, Crumble. Oh, you make me laugh. That's fun. Donald, Packers Parsons. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good comp right there to the Rams Von Miller trade. Except the difference being like Von's a rental, and then the Packers. The fact they trade for him and then they give him the huge deal. That was the other thing. The Packers sacrificed draft capital and they sacrificed cap space. They completely went all in on this with Micah Parsons. This was, it was like, whoa. And now the interesting thing with the Packers, so they've got Jordan Love. They do this. One of the reasons they can do this is so they have Jordan Love under contract for the next 4 years. Now there's 2 void years on his deal, 2029 and 2030, but he's got 4 more years left on his deal. And now that being said, they've got some restructures to do on Jordan Love because his cap number for 2028 is $75.775 million. So they got some work to do with Love to get that number down in 28, but they'll figure it out. And the other thing with the Packers is, as we know and as we find out every year from their financial statements, they are a cash-rich franchise. They'll be able to give whatever guarantee they need to easily to Jordan Love when it comes time to restructure and redo his contract. So I think it will take Packers a while to cure Parsons of his cowboy virus. Might be another year before he wins a Super Bowl. Maybe. I don't know. I think Packer culture is gonna. I think Parsons is gonna warm up to that pretty quick. Although it did take the late Reggie White 4 years to win it all in Green Bay, but that was a different time. That was 30 some years ago. How long did it take Charles Woodson? Yeah, because Charles Woodson went out there from the Raiders, and it took Charles Woodson 5 years. Woo! Took him longer than I thought. His 4th year, he was DPOY, 2009, and then the 5th year, he won it. So, wow, I didn't realize it took 5 years for Woodson to get over the top. Okay. But I would also argue that Charles Woodson's success is another reason why they did the Parsons deal, because the last time the Packers won a Super Bowl was when they also had an alpha on defense. And they wanted to get themselves an alpha again. Charles Woodson, alpha, secondary alpha. Micah Parsons, edge alpha. You needed that guy. Good news for the Broncos is they've got an alpha. They've got PS2. No matter what happens with Nick Bonito and his contract, they've already got an alpha, and he's on a long-term deal, and he's the foundational piece. So now you just got to get Bo Nix up to speed and get him growing on the offensive side, and then you've really got that. Charles Woodson got robbed on the tuck rule. Yes, he did. I know this is probably not the thing to say on a Broncos-related show, but the Raiders did get robbed there back in January of '02. Absolutely robbed. But that just seems to happen to the Raiders against New England historically. Or well, kind of. Or not really, because New England got robbed back in '76. Ray Sugar Bear Hamilton. Look it up. So, good morning, good evening, Chase. Wherever you are, good morning, good evening. Does guaranteed money count towards any cap or limit by the NFL? No. I mean, obviously you have the salary cap, but I mean, you could, if you want, you can guarantee every dollar. And the thing with guarantees, of course, is when you guarantee the money, you have to put it in escrow immediately. That's where the cash-rich ownership comes into play. Because for the Broncos, it's very easy for them to get the cash necessary. They have the liquidity. It's very easy for the Packers to do that because the Packers are sitting on a cash reserve of over $500 million. For a team that doesn't have a formal ownership, they are a rich team. They're actually, the Chris Rock rich versus wealthy. The Packers are a wealthy team, and their little area they've developed up in Green Bay, they sit on a money printing machine up there, so they're fine. They're in great shape. They're a small market team that prints money like a large market team. But if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, the thing with the Bengals is like they've actually, to get the deals done that they have gotten done, they've done things that they said they would not do. So for years, they were insistent, Mike Brown was insistent that they would not put a corporate name on Paul Brown Stadium because, of course, Paul Brown, his father, the late founder of the team. And then, of course, you had to start getting guaranteed money for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And now it's Paycor Stadium. It's Paycor Stadium so they could pay Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, literally. But there's limits to how much guarantee they can come up with, and that's a big part of why there's issues with Trey Hendrickson. It's like it's not a team that possesses as much liquidity in terms of getting the guaranteed money in escrow as the Denver Broncos do. Their ownership does not have those sorts of resources. That's why they have trouble with it. Pardon me for a moment. I don't want you to hear me sneeze here, so. What I need to do is put a slide up or something that says I'm, sneeze break, blow my nose break, allergy break, something like that. Technical difficulties. The way these contracts are going up, we will see a $500 million contract the next few seasons. That's probably coming for a quarterback at some point. A $500 million contract. It's probably coming. I mean, let's just look at the contracts right now. I'm gonna just consult the contracts here because it would be a quarterback. All right. So right now, the largest total value contract, and it's got the void years on it and whatnot and so forth, and he's not going to see the total value of this, and it's going to be restructured before then. It's going to be restructured before then because, like Patrick Mahomes' cap figure for 2026 is $78.2 million. So there's a restructure coming. The number on Patrick Mahomes is $450 is the total value, but that's going to be redone here. So the real contract we're talking about
is Josh Allen, right? That's 330 million potentially. And then the other with $250 million total guarantee. That's like the real number we're talking about as far as the big one so far. Josh Allen, $250 million guaranteed. Dak Prescott, $231. Deshaun Watson, $230. And that was the thing with Deshaun Watson. See, to go back to the guarantee, the Browns guaranteed every dollar of Deshaun Watson. That's why they're up a creek. Because they, unlike the Broncos, who did not guarantee every dollar of the Russell Wilson contract, which is what saved them in the end from having even worse of a situation than they did, the Browns guaranteed every dollar of Deshaun's deal. And that's why they are just in a mess. They're sitting there this year with a $35 million cap figure. But next year, the Browns cap figure for Deshaun Watson in 2026 is $80.7 million. If they cut him with a post-June 1 designation, they'll be able to do so, and they'll have $80 million of dead money, and they won't and at least they will be able to not nuke their cap further, but they'll have to take some spread. If they cut Deshaun Watson before June 1 next year, he would count $131 million against the cap because of what they have to spread out. What happens is if they cut him with a post June 1 designation, it's $80 million, and then they still have to absorb another. They have to absorb another $51 million the following year. I mean, it's wild. I mean, God, breathtaking. It's breathtaking the creek the Browns are up with that deal. The Browns love overpaying players. Yes, paid $250 million to a guy that played here 2 years. Well, not exactly. They did not pay him $250,000 in the end. So the final number on Russell Wilson that the Broncos paid him was hang on here. Okay, I think I can get it here for you. Yeah, the final number the Broncos paid on Russell Wilson in terms of cash paid. Let's see, it was 57, 28, and 37. So let's see, 57, 28, 85. Yeah, the final number the Broncos paid was $122.79 million. So it wasn't $250 million. The Broncos were able to get out of it, so it wasn't $250 million. It wasn't bad. What am I saying? Did I just say $122 million wasn't bad? It was still bad. I mean, he's still $30+ million on their cap. The reason why the Broncos have a dead money figure that is, that this year is like middle of the pack is because they did so well elsewhere. Like that's the thing. Like the Broncos in dead money this year are, I'll count here, okay? The number of teams that have more dead money than the Broncos: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 13 teams have more dead money than the Broncos. So that means the Broncos are 19th. So they're in the they're somewhere they're in the middle tier of dead money, despite Russell Wilson still counting $30 million plus. So they nailed the rest of the team in terms of dead money charges. Good job, George. Right? Russell Wilson, $32 million of dead money. Everybody else, $4.32 million. That's it. Actually, $1.3 million of that is Sam Franklin, who they just cut. But they're going to get offset. Once Sam Franklin goes to the Bills 53, the Broncos get offset on Sam Franklin. So that dead money figure is going to come down by another $1 million. So it'll be $35 million. So, hey, well done, George. Nice job. There's a believe it or not, there's the dead money figure. Like, they have dead money on a couple of undrafted rookies, by the way, because like Clay Webb, who's no longer around, that's $215,000 of dead money because they gave him a bonus. JB Brown got a nice bonus, $153,000. There's dead money on him too. You know, it's a chance you take. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Anyway, the only reason GP is here is because he drafts well. Yeah, and that's a big reason. That's a huge reason. He's drafted so well that he overcame a disastrous trade and a disastrous coach hire. I mean, that's to his credit. And, I mean, that's why I opened this show saying, you know, that I think George hit again on his mid-round guys. Those third and fourth round guys, the three guys in the third and fourth round this year, I think he's going to be 3 for 3 on them. Russell Wilson wanted $350 million guaranteed. Could you imagine if we signed that contract? Well, they'd be up a creek. As Mike Shanahan said once when he was asked where the team would be without Fred Fleming, the guy who worked for the team for a long time and would tell people to get back at camp, tell the media to get back at camp. And Mike said, sarcastically said, I don't know, up a creek. I'm not saying it sarcastically. The team would be up a creek if he'd signed that. So, Payton and Payton, done mile high magic. Yep. Just love listening to your thoughts. I always feel like I'm getting to Sean and George's brains via you. Just loving it. I appreciate it, Robert. The thing I just do, I just try to listen to what they say, listen to what they say, also take note of what they do, pick up some observations, pick up some insight, and just try to offer some. I try to share why they do what they do. But I do my best to offer some insight on why they do what they do. It's actually more important to illuminate that than necessarily share what I think of the moves. And that sometimes I'll tell you what I think of whether I agree with a move or not. But I think maybe the more important thing is to illuminate for y'all why they are doing something, why they believe in a player, why they believe this is the right move, why they're doing this. Just, you know, to help everyone kind of understand what it is they're doing at a given time. That's just what we're trying to do here. That's all. So I don't want to. That's the thing. It's not about me. It's about what they're doing. It's about covering the team. It's about hopefully, you know, me learning what they're doing and me kind of hopefully shedding some light a little bit. And sometimes, and I learn stuff about what they do too. So, Tom and Mahomes make a great combo of Wayne. Gosh. Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness gracious! The comment section's been fun tonight. I'm looking at some of these comments about the Raiders and Tom Brady and all that. You put Tom Brady and the Raiders together, that is that's an easy combo to hate, I think. My mom was asking me last week, why is Tom Brady still doing games when he's a part owner of the team? And I'm like, I can't explain it. I can't explain. I mean, I guess, Fox thinks he's worth all that money. I don't get it. My mom is on team Greg Olson. She'd rather listen to him call a game. She likes him. Better broadcaster. She says, in her opinion, brings more to a game, more insightful. And I said, yes, I agree. So, whatever. It's like, it's the big name. They want the big names, but give me the better broadcasters than the big names, right? I mean, sometimes the best sometimes the best analysts are not the ones that were the huge stars. Anyway, I also think the other thing that I have with Tom Brady as a broadcaster, like they instantly made him the number one. I mean, this is old school, but John Madden, his first season as a broadcaster, just does a handful of games, and he's just doing regional games, and he's kind of working his way up the chain, right? I think that's kind of the way it should be. Like, they just had him doing like the E or F team games on CBS. I remember John Lynch when he started broadcasting before he went to be a general manager. I remember the first season he was calling games, and he did one, and I was working with the Panthers, and he came to do one of our games then, and talking with him, and it was Panthers Bucks, and the Panthers were mediocre and the Bucks were terrible that year. And so, like, he was a low-level broadcaster getting a low-level game. And that was part of it. That's what you did. Like, you worked your way up the ladder. Anyway, that's my old school. I'm kind of old school. I'm the old school guy who thinks that you should build an offensive line before you draft a quarterback. So, anyway. Well, thank you. Great talent of analyzing players, asking really good questions that provide deeper insights. Well, thank you. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I ask dumb questions like anybody else. I mean, so, sometimes I hit, sometimes I miss. So if I miss, I just try to do better the next time. That's all. The main thing is, sometimes I don't, but usually I try to avoid yes/no questions. I never say talk about. I hate it. I hate it when a reporter says, talk about this. Like, that's not a question, it's a command. I can't stand that. Like, if someone told me, like, talk about something, I'd be like, what? No, ask me a question. I can't. That's like a pet peeve of mine when a reporter says talk about this. Like, that's lazy. No, like, ask a question. Ask an actual question there, right? Anyway, that's just me. But I try to put some thought into it. And also, the other thing I say, and this is what I say to any young person who is in media, who's getting into it. When you go into an interview or a press conference or whatever, you listen, because sometimes the best idea for a question is going to come from something that the interview subject or the press conference subject says. And it's a follow-up to what they say. And maybe it's not the thing that you're coming in that you're going to write about or talk about in your piece or whatever. But oftentimes that will lead, that if you listen, it'll lead you to a good follow-up question, and it'll lead you in a place that you didn't know where you were going to go. And the other thing that does is, if you say, hey, you mentioned this, and you ask a follow-up question, the other thing that does for the person that you're interviewing is, on a subconscious level, it triggers that, oh, you're listening to what I'm saying, which is also kind of a common courtesy thing. Yes, You should be listening to what they're saying. That's part of interacting with somebody, that you're actually listening to what's being spoken. So, anyway, that's part of my TED talk about how to actually interview somebody. Listen to what they're saying. And listen to what they're saying, and don't come in with a preconceived notion of what the conversation is going to be or what you want this story to be about. Listen and be open-minded and be curious, not judgmental. And no, Ted Lasso, Walt Whitman did not say that, although it's nice to think that it'd be cool if he did. So, you must get, that's a great question from Sean at Daily Pressers. No, other reporters do. I'll say this, Sean, other reporters do. I'm not the only one who gets that. There's great question, good question, and fair question. Fair question is like he doesn't really want to answer that, but he knows he has to, and he knows it's going to come up. Great question. There's one there was one I asked him a couple weeks ago about whether Greenlaw and Singleton needed game snaps together, and it was like you could tell. And he actually said you should ask them, and I actually plan to ask Greenlaw in the locker room him that this week when I get a chance to talk with him, hopefully. But you could tell it was something that when he was answering it, he was thinking about himself. Like, sometimes he says great question, and you can tell it's like it's something that got him thinking right there in front of you, and that in that moment you're kind of seeing his own thought process as well. You can see the gears kind of turning in his brain. And that's actually really cool to see. So, yeah. Great, good, and fair. Yeah. I've thought about putting together a Sean Payton glossary now that I've been around this guy for 2.5 years. Like there were a couple of terms I would add this week. He went into like this minor league baseball tangent, which as a baseball guy I can appreciate. You can see my World Series pennant back there. Where he talked about players on the practice squad, and some were Tidewaters and some were Joplins. So like Tidewaters would be your AAA guys that you can call up to the major leagues in a pinch and they can play right away, referring to they were the longtime affiliate, AAA affiliate of the Mets. Now they're known as the Norfolk Tides. They were the Tidewater Tides. When I was growing up, they were the rival of the Richmond Braves, the I-64 rivalry. Used to play at a old Met Park right off the highway. Now it's an office park near the airport. And then it's the Joplins. Joplin would have been for a long time, I believe, in the Texas League, which is AA. And AA, you get players that are on their way up and they're more developmental. AAA gets some players they're developing and they're getting kind of their final stages, but AAA has a lot of the guys that has guys that have been in the major leagues and maybe they're missing a skill set or they don't quite stick, but they're kind of staying ready to be called up in a pinch. And he said some guys on your practice squad are Tidewaters and some are Joplins. So Caleb Lohner would be a Joplin. He is a developmental player. But Calvin Throckmorton on the offensive line would be a Tidewater. In other words, you have an injury on the interior offensive line, Calvin's getting a jersey. I mean, if a guy on the interior offensive line goes on injured reserve, Calvin may go to your 53. That's the type of guy you're talking about. So, hey, Bo, talk about the interception you threw. I stepped back and threw it to the other team. Dennis, the smile I had on my face when he responded, I know they'd lost the game. Yeah, and I think everyone loved that as much as I did. I love that. And the reason why I love that is honestly, that was a response where if I had been in his shoes and someone had asked me that question,
That is exactly what I would have said. I dropped back and I threw it to the other team. Like, just simple as that. Because I'm that kind of Weisenheimer. Like, I just what do you think happened? I dropped back and I threw it to the other team. Yeah. Yeah, I can be very, how shall I put this? I can be very prickly sometimes. There was there was someone I have to on their text chain at work once. Like, I got a little bit upset when something came in that was like obvious, and I'm like, sorry, and eventually I apologized. But I'm like, that came in, and I'm like, what do you think I am, a moron? So anyway, all right, hour and 15 minutes here on the show, and it's 2:31 in the a.m. here in the Mile High City. So. Appreciate all of you joining me here on this edition of Denver Football After Dark here in the wee small hours of Sunday morning on this Labor Day weekend to talk a lot about George Payton, his mid-round picks, but also talk a little about Sean Payton philosophy, even Sean Payton questions, talk about salary cap stuff. I always love where this goes, and a lot of where this goes in the back half of the show is because of the questions and the comments y'all bring, and I kind of like this flow of a show where we have kind of the first 30 minutes, which is very topic based there. So when you click on it and you see the title of the show, you're going to get what's advertised. And then after that, we kind of flow and it kind of gets easy and it just goes where the commenters and the viewers take it. So I appreciate Sean, appreciate all of you coming in here and participating in the show as always. And whenever you watch live, on delay, I can't thank you enough for joining me and making this little YouTube channel something that's been much more successful in the last few weeks than I thought it could be. And I thank you all for that. You've helped turn something that was nothing into something that's actually become pretty substantial here in a very short amount of time. And I thank you dearly for that. It's become a nice part, not only for me, but for Denver sports as well. So thank you very much for that. And look forward to more. Like I said, probably not a show Sunday night into Monday morning because we expect to hear from, if it's like other previous Labor Days, we'll probably hear from Sean Payton on Monday morning. And Monday is a work day for the Broncos, but I expect to be here if not Sunday night. I expect to be here on Monday night. Like I said, probably the time to watch for is if you're watching college football on Monday night, sometime maybe not long after North Carolina TCU. I'll come in and talk Broncos and wrap up the Monday over at Broncos HQ. I think there'll be plenty to talk about. Maybe we'll see Marvin Mims Jr. on the field. That's sort of the big news that we're looking for, to see if he's back from the little groin injury that he was dealing with that he suffered on Wednesday. So that's the injury thing we're going to be watching for, of course, in week 1. So appreciate you all stopping by and spending part of your Sunday, wherever you are, with me, whether it was live or on tape. And can't thank you enough for joining me here on this edition of Denver Football After Dark. So like, comment, share, subscribe. Of course, if you enjoy this, if you know people who might like this kind of Broncos talk, tell your friends. And based on the numbers I've seen, it seems like people have told their friends, because I see the subscriber count going up and the viewership count going up on a lot of these shows. So appreciate it, and look forward to talking to you next time. Like I said, probably Monday night, maybe Sunday, but probably Monday night for the next edition of Denver Football After Dark. So until then, take care. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.